still be here.
Yeah, you will.
I assume that was your guys that burned the weeds along the park?
You have no proof of that.
Hey, you're back.
Welcome, everyone. It is Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. We are here for our regularly agendized city council meeting for the city of Middleton. We'll begin the meeting with a roll call, please. Jenica.
Council President Kaiser.
Here.
Councilmember Huggins. Here. Councilmember Murray.
Here.
Councilmember O'Meara.
Here.
If you'll stand for the pledge. Hats. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Jason Van Gilders consented to give us an invocation. Thank you, Jason.
Pray. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to come together and meet together as a community. We thank you for this country that we live in and the opportunity to govern ourselves and elect our leaders. We pray that you would grant those that have been elected wisdom and grace and insights into how they might best lead our community tonight. We pray for our larger community, for those that are not here, that you'll protect us, keep us safe, and thank you for the chance to live as brothers and sisters throughout this area. Again, we thank you again for tonight and pray your blessings upon our proceedings. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Jason. Let's see. We've got an agenda with a change. It's just an information item, but item number 3, spatial recognition to Hubble Homes for all the work. Didn't quite come together. It was kind of late notice for them, and we've moved that to May 3rd. Is that the right date?
Correct.
May 3rd. So I don't know if we need to amend the agenda for that item, but it's continued to May 3rd, however you guys want to do it.
Mayor, I don't think we need to amend, and council can correct me if I'm wrong, especially in information. There's no action taken. Right. Okay. All right, then I move we approve the agenda posted April 17th at 4 p.m.
Second.
Motion by Kaiser, second by O'Meara. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? That is unanimous. The first information item to discuss is a continuation of some discussion on, well, not a continued item, but a discussion about food trucks. And Jenica's been working a lot on this. Jenica?
Thank you, Council and Mayor. So before you is a spreadsheet that I created. You asked last council, that we do some more research regarding the cities surrounding us and their requirements for mobile food trucks. So I'm presenting this to you. This is just an information item again. But if you have any questions, I'm more than willing to answer questions.
Jenica?
Yes.
Or legal counsel, the one question I got, liability insurance. Liability always jumps out at me no matter what it is. I see 2 cities use that, or a bond, and 4 cities do not. Do you have any background information on that, or maybe counsel?
So this was looking at their permits, their vendor permit applications. I did not dive deep into each city's code, and so it's possible that there are things that are required by cities that were not expressly stated on their permits, but are part of city code as well. So I know with our vendors, we require liability insurance, vendor solicitors, permits, those things. We do require that liability insurance. And I think it's probably likely that the other cities do as well, but it wasn't stated specifically on their permit application.
All right, any background there?
Well,
Mr. Hilton?
Mr. Mayor, I assume what that means is it's not insurance that would protect the city necessarily. It's insurance that would protect their customers and people approaching the food truck, walking around on the site where it's located, eating the food, that kind of thing. So it's not necessarily a city liability per se, but it would be a matter of sort of protecting the public. And it is common, whenever you're licensing vendors to see that that's in place.
Jenica, did we, when the park was built, Piccadilly Park, power was stubbed in for them to use near their parking area, correct, for vendors?
There, at the pergola,
Yes.
there was power that was stubbed into different spots in the pergola. Not every space has it, but that was primarily for the vendors when we did Middleton Market, for them
Okay.
using that specific space.
Okay,
In the past with the market, we did have some food trucks that pulled extension cords to be able to access that electricity, but it's typically not stubbed in for the food trucks.
okay.
And let me just clarify that, Rob, because the power, the food truck that used that was a trailer, it was a mobile trailer, it was a popcorn trailer, so they weren't the actual food truck. The food trucks themselves, the mobile food trucks, didn't draw.
Didn't draw
from
on that power, okay.
Yeah, they did.
Do you know if they're, now that the market has moved, is that, and they're more accessible for them, are they, do you know if they've been using them since the market moved, or do they? I mean, I see occasionally on Thursday, one or two trucks down there. Are they using power, or are they using their own external power? Do
It's
you know?
I don't know for sure,
Okay.
but I have driven by and I haven't seen them drawing power from, when I've seen the food trucks out there in
Right.
the park, I haven't seen extension cords
Okay,
to the.
I guess I'll have to, I can answer that myself.
President Kaiser.
Yes, Councilman Mayor.
At Foot Park, for our food truck vendors, we did supply 30 amp power and 110 power, but it is seldom used by the food trucks. Some of the smaller popcorn machines like she was talking about, and the vendors that are selling ice cream or snow cones, that kind of stuff, they'll use the 110 power, but the 230 amp power, most of them bring their own generation.
Okay.
So,
Kind of wired into the trailer, I'm assuming.
right, yeah, and there's statutes of the fire code that they have to
Right.
follow for having those on site.
Okay.
Appreciate all the work you went to on this, Jenica. It's really good to see what other cities are doing. Anything else jump out at you, council?
Mayor Rule,
Councilman O'Meara?
I have to agree with you. It's really useful information for us to be able to come up with a statute of our own. I appreciate your work on this, Jenica.
Thank you. Can I say something
If you
else?
please do.
So, the staff would we would like direction as to, if you would like us to bring this back, in a draft ordinance. We have a little bit of a proposal that I could throw out to you. It wouldn't be a decision today. But Piccadilly Park has the availability of 3 food trucks there at any given time during vending hours, right, dawn to dusk. And so the question before you is would there be a desire to limit the number of additional food trucks that could be running in the city on any given commercial lot throughout the day? So for example, the use is such that you have all the commercial lots downtown, right? And in the zoning table, the use allows for mobile food trucks. And so do we want to consider and discuss limiting the number of mobile food trucks that we would allow on commercial spaces? And then we have, and that's done maybe through lottery or however we do that. And then we have an ongoing rotation, first come, first served, at Piccadilly Park for those 3 spots. If you'd like, you could open it up to more spots. Where in Piccadilly Park, that you would need to decide that. So they're not taking up the parking spots for the park, but those are just maybe some questions to think about as we look to move forward with whatever direction that council would like to direct staff.
Council, I agree, we need to, as we head into this season, have something down. There's a couple of things I think that would address that. One is the written permission from property owner. I like that idea. Not that I want to take away from a food truck, but I don't want to take away from the brick and mortar either, portion of that type of business. I didn't get it to you in time to put it up so we could all see it, but I saw a food truck just off the boulevard at Franklin Building Supply, and he's there throughout the week and stuff. He has tables and everything else, but as I go by on a Sunday and he's dumping a bucket of something liquid into the grass, I thought, okay, who regulates on a Sunday? You know, he could be anywhere on a Sunday. So I like the idea of the written permission from the property owner. I don't begrudge him anything, but I look across the street and go, that restaurant right there is paying how much in taxes, and he's riding on the back of Franklin Building Supply and their taxes to the cities. And I don't know what his agreement is with them, and that means nothing to me. But at least I know with a written permission from the property owner, if they wanted to rent a space, if you will, that's their land, so be it to them to do so. So I like that idea. There's several things on here that I think we need to have as we head into the season, so that, you know, I guess you cover all our bases, that, you know, that proof of a vehicle insurance, do they have a district health plan? These type of things that we might not necessarily have in place all the way. Not allowed on vacant or unimproved land, right? I don't want to, which I don't know how that affects within the city, but you know, I would hate to see them on a potential fire risk with that. So I think with what other cities have done here, I think we could come up with something that would give the city some teeth in it, and we could control the volume to a degree. The biggest thing is if you show up early, you get Piccadilly Park, great, you're there. All right, you want to be somewhere else, then get written permission from that person that you can park on their property. It's their property. If they want to have a food truck, they should have that right if they're in a commercial zone. That's my opinion. Councilman Murray.
First of all, they do have to purchase a permit to vend within the city limits, right?
Yes.
They pay for that, so they may not be paying commercial property taxes, but they're paying something for the use of, is it by the day, by the week, by the month?
It's by the year. Currently, right now, it's $35.
For a day use or what?
No,
For a
the year.
year.
Oh, for the year.
Doesn't count.
So maybe we should look at updating that, but as far as this goes, I like the Caldwell model. It's the least restrictive, but it covers priorities. Written permission from property owner, background check, fingerprinting, which seems to be universal with the exception of Star, sanitary sewer plan, located on non-combustible surface, motor vehicle insurance, district health permit, no parking during non-vending hours, and it leaves the rest of it alone. I don't like the idea of an approved food truck list. I don't.
Yeah, I don't like because your truck list would be when they buy the permit, you would know they would eventually be in the city.
Yep.
Councilman Huggins.
So I'd also, I also like the ones that require your basic, you mentioned the district health. You mentioned the district health permit? in yours?
Yeah, it's on the Caldwell.
I can't, I mean, I'm sure liability insurance is, that one's not on the Caldwell one. They may require it, I would think they would. And I don't think it's, I'm leaning towards the workman's comp. For one reason is, most of these are gonna be family owned, and they probably are not required to have workman's comp. But if it's not family owned, I don't, we have to supply workman's comp and liability to every place we go. Because you're on a job site, and it feels like they would be similar.
Well, it feels to me that the requirement for liability insurance is probably redundant because state code would already require it, either for the vehicle towing the trailer, they would
So-
cover it.
So they would require it. That doesn't mean they have it, because they would have to be caught and asked for it.
Fair enough.
So,
Caught, it is a pretty good word. Who is in charge of policing this stuff? Let's say,
yeah,
let's try
and
fingerprinting
that's a
and
good
background
point.
check.
And go that down that
Who
road.
do we, are they gonna provide that up front, or do we send the police chief out to check on this stuff? If that's the case, then you're right, $35. It doesn't even come close to handling the cost to the taxpayers for some of that stuff. So that's a real good question.
Mayor Rule?
Yes,
My thought on this would be at the permitting phase, as they come in to get their vendor permit, they would prove that they have, you know, hey, I have permission to be here, here you go. If they've gained a new permission, they would have to provide that to the city to go with their application, which would kind of pretty much check all of these boxes, the proof of, you know, liability or motor vehicle insurance. When you submit your packet, there's your proof that I am covered, or here's my liability insurance. Similar to a lot of other permitting type, you know, when we look at, you know, about everything in the city, there's a license, you know, we gotta see that there's insurance involved. So to me, it would handle at the permitting process. Basically, it's another box that needs to be checked. This is what I have, here's my packet, basically now.
Yep.
That's how I view it.
Provide a checklist and they turn in the packet, you know.
Yeah.
and if they change employees 2 weeks downstream, who's checking the fingerprints and stuff is my question.
That, I believe, Mayor, is that's the $1 million question, really. You know, I like the idea of fingerprinting, and I get it, but fingerprinting, if a guy was fingerprinted in January, that doesn't mean he didn't commit a crime in March.
Yeah.
So,
There's a lot of,
yeah, so
moving parts
there's,
there, isn't there?
there's too many moving parts for
Yeah.
that, but at least that's a step in the right direction.
Councilman Murray, then Councilman O'Meara.
Sorry about that, Tim. A lot of this is frankly a moot point because we lack code enforcement. We don't have code enforcement, and we're stretched fairly thin on our police officers as it is. So, I mean, we can, as you said, we can have a checklist up front that they meet, you know, they check all the boxes, but we have no way to ensure that those keep being met.
Councilman O'Meara?
Fire department has to approve any vehicle that's a vending light within the Treasure Valley. And there's, I guess, an agreement between the cities that if you're good in this city, it's good in that city. So if you're inspected by the fire marshal in Meridian, you're okay to come to Middleton. But I don't know if that's something we want to enforce as well. I mean, it's more code enforcement, to say the least, but
Jenica, did you raise your hand?
I did.
All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. So currently, Victor Eastless, the fire chief, does send us all of the mobile food trucks that he inspects, they have to get a permit for Middleton from him. So he will send us that information, and then when they come to get their food truck permit for the park, then that is part of that information.
In your gathering of this information, did you get any information on fees charged by these other cities?
I didn't, it seemed like the background check and fingerprinting, that when those were required, then the fees went up pretty substantially to cover the cost of that. So it was about $140 for the permit, but that included the cost for the background check and the fingerprinting, which when we run background checks, it's about $65 for just a background check. That doesn't include the fingerprinting.
Per employee?
Per vendor solicitor that comes in
So
and
if a
requests.
vendor has 6 employees, it's still $55
$65 per person,
per person.
yes. STARS, the conditional use permit that's required, I believe, I was told this from a food truck vendor, and I wasn't able to verify this yet, but I believe they said that in order for them to be able to even get a food truck permit, they have to go to planning and zoning first and receive a conditional use permit, and that runs about $675 for that permit itself. And then they are paying for the vendor permit on top of that. But I wasn't able to confirm that.
Boy, this is getting more complicated the more we talk about it. So now, here's the devil's advocate showing up. Do we fingerprint the people that work at other food vending places?
We don't charge any, we don't do any fingerprinting for any of our vendor solicitor permits. We just run a background check.
Jenica, do we do any kind of background check on those in the Middleton marketplace, or is it they just show up?
So the city doesn't run the Middleton Market any longer, but in order for, to be at Piccadilly Park, and when we were doing the market, we did not require a background check. We require a background check for those vendor solicitors that are going to the people, not requiring the background check for those that are providing a service that the people are coming to.
Gotcha. That makes
Council,
sense.
this could go on for an hour.
Yes, it could.
I have a proposal maybe for council that, based on this conversation and the other cities, there's an opinion that Caldwell's looks pretty good. Maybe, why don't we work on this for a few weeks, bring back, let staff bring back a matrix, something like this, and make a, say, here's a possible procedure, and we take a shot at that night based on this and your comments tonight. Is that a reasonable approach?
I think so.
Cost analysis and the costs from other cities that they run. So the cost analysis from our point of view for fingerprinting, background, whatever it is, yeah.
And without even, I mean, is it gonna be cost effective to fingerprint? Like she said, we don't require that of the vendors where they provide a service, the people come to them and leave. I get it, door to door makes more sense to me. When you said that, that made sense to me. So I'd kinda like to see, is it worth it? What's the benefit?
Right.
Cost-wise?
But if we are gonna require it, then we need
Right.
to build that into the cost of the permit.
No question.
So, one quick thing, thank you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
Remember, council, that fees have to be, the city cannot make money on fees.
Right.
So it's just purely a pass-through.
Proportionate to the amount of labor
Correct.
spent,
Correct.
costs incurred. Okay, we're gonna take a shot at moving forward with that, Jenica. Thank you very much for your work. This helped a lot. Appreciate that. All right, discussion about feral cat colonies. We've had some conversation about cat colonies being the public putting food and feeders on other people's property, and then putting them on city property. And there's a lot of, we could kind of do the same thing here with other cities on feral cat colonies. I like cats around my place. I have a few acres and they keep the mice down. But to develop and flourish feral cat populations is not what most cities, that's not the approach they take. So we put this on the agenda to try and get some kind of feedback from council on what does Middleton want to do with feral cat colonies. Councilman Murray.
Surprisingly enough, there was quite a bit of discussion of this in that great online forum known as Facebook. And the general consensus is that in a lot of other cities, they have, I think it's called a TNR, trap, neuter, return, so that you take them up, you get them spayed or neutered, and then you return them so that they're still allowed to live their lives and control your mouse population, but they're not reproducing at an exponential number, you know. And if it's on somebody's private property, honestly, that's their concern. It's not the city's. If it's on city property, unless they're causing some kind of active nuisance, then I would support the spay, neuter, and return them.
And that's, if there's a dozen cats, I don't, what's a cost to spay a cat? $50?
So, and this is where I don't know for sure about my facts, but I believe that West Valley has the program. But I think if you live in a city, that you are treated differently than if you live in the county. I don't know that for sure. I am seeing that, I've seen 2 instances in another city where they wanted to do this, the trapping, get them fixed. And when they called West Valley, which is $25, they were rejected because they lived inside of the city limits. I don't get that, so I'm not sure I'm correct on that, but that would be a piece, if we're gonna look at that program, we kind of need to know that piece. And I'll tell you, because I'm somebody who, I'm having people feed cats on my property. So we tried to lure the cats into our own barn, and they did not like our food as well. The people feeding the cats feed them better. And, so I don't have a problem with trapping them, getting them fixed. Because the other piece is, if you think their little kittens are surviving well, they're not. It's actually pretty cruel. We've got hawks, we've got birds of prey. I know they're getting some of the, it's just the way it works. So yeah, I don't have a problem with doing that. I'm not sure exactly where to take them if West Valley doesn't take them. I don't.
Let's approach
But
it from,
part of it is on the city property also.
yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Let's start with
And
property
that's-
rights first.
Yeah.
Does the city want to allow people to put houses and feeders on city or streets and city property?
I don't
That's
think they
that's the
should.
first question.
What do we mean by houses?
Cat houses, colonies.
Like dog
Shelter.
boxes and little houses, homes. Councilman O'Meara.
If you start allowing on city property for cats, okay, now what's next? I'm gonna bring a home for my gerbils and put it on the street. I'm gonna bring a home for my dogs and put it on the street. No, I don't think public right-of-way is the proper place for cat havens. If you wanna have one on your own property, that's your business, but not a public property.
Although to be fair, the cat would control the gerbil population.
This is true, yes.
Maybe the wrong example.
Maybe, yeah.
And I think, because then who's in charge of trapping them? Who's in charge of getting them in, to get them fixed and then bringing them back? If it's on city property, I don't know how that would, unless you had an organization that was going to take that on, and then it would have to get where it's gonna go. They can't just be setting them up wherever. I would think you'd be feeding the raccoons at the same time.
Well, I think-
Yes, you will be, yes,
I mean,
definitely.
I mean,
I think this is another thing we need to do some research to figure out if West Valley or someone else is willing to do spay and neuter, at what cost or possibly free, as some shelters do. I do know that picking them up and taking them to the shelter is not really an option because they are always overloaded with cats and kittens, and they just don't have the capacity. So if we're gonna talk about just getting rid of them, it's gonna be euthanasia, which I'm not, no.
And most people who have domestic cats, they let them out. So if you've got a cat colony, my house is pretty close to other neighborhoods, then there's really a chance of disease spread to domestic cats that are just out. So there's just a lot of different things.
So,
Yeah, I'm in favor of the trapping, getting them fixed so that they don't repopulate, but.
is that up to the city employees to trap them, or is that up to the person whose property these colonies are on? How do you want to define that part?
I'm not a fan of having it on city property. I think they need to contact the property owner and work together in a private manner, instead of deciding where it's gonna be.
I agree, I'm not a fan of having it on city property because it just opened Pandora's box to what's next. In terms of that, I don't wanna, our city guys are busy enough, especially heading into summer, so who's gonna delegate trapping the cats, taking them in and getting them fixed? If that's the case, we can get it done, bringing them back, who's in charge of that? Tagging which one's got what, so what guy are we gonna take off of other city projects to take care of this feral cats? Personal property, I agree. But then again, we do need to understand if you're going to do that, there needs to be some restriction. We ask people to license their animals, their dogs and things like that, so why, keep it under control. And I agree, disease spread. I have a cat, my wife has a cat that goes in and out, and he's vaccinated and that, and I don't know who he goes and hangs out with. I don't wanna know, so.
Councilman Murray?
It's possible that there is a nonprofit somewhere in the valley that would come out and do this. Back in Montana, I used to dispatch. We didn't have a shelter in our county, but we did have kind of an unofficial pet rescue. And she was just an old gal who loved animals, and you could call her up, and she'd pick up cat colonies, she'd pick up lost dogs, and she'd take care of them. So in a valley with this level of population, I have to assume somewhere out there's a group that would be willing to come help out, just out of love of animals.
Okay, again, I'll propose, this could go on for a couple hours too. I propose this, we don't have anything in the books on feral cats, do we? Do you know, Becky or Mark?
No, I don't believe we do. We have an animal ordinance, no more than 4 per, lot, is that correct, Roberta?
Yes, 1.5 acres.
But
For cows, for horses, for
Livestock.
lots, for cats, for dogs?
Any type of animal, including livestock, or if it's half acre or more.
Let us bring back some simple language and let us do some research and see if you guys have some connections to some of those organizations, please forward that or check it out yourself. Let's start there, and downstream, I think there's pretty much consensus that we don't want it on city property. Private property, it's private property, whatever they want to allow the public to put on their private property, I guess that's between them and the private property owner. But we'll bring back some simple language and try and give this some direction.
Okay.
Okay. Item number 3, we got notice out a little late, but just to touch on it before Hubble Homes and some of their contractors came in and cleaned Mill Creek ditch bank for 3/4 of a mile or so at no cost. And I'd got one bid of $186,000 to do this work that they did in a little over a week at no charge. So I want to give them some recognition. That's what that's about. That'll be continued at the next city council meeting. Action item number 1 is consent agenda items. Consider approving minutes for city council April 5. B, consider ratifying payroll for April 7. Consider approving accounts payable through April 7. Consider authorizing mayor's designee to accept JBJ Diesel's quote to repair the rear suspension on a dump truck. E is authorizing the mayor's designee to ratify the staff's authorization to do it once welding for repair on said dump truck. F is consider city council's on-call professional services roster to include more firms, and we'll have Mr. Van Gilder touch on those 3, if it's okay, before we proceed. Jason? They're all kind of related, right, Jason?
2 or 3 are related.
Okay.
Dump truck. The truck bed needed fixing. We fixed it. The price went over $5,000. We're here to ask for permission, forgiveness, ratification. It's one of those to pay that bill. The same dump truck, the back end is wearing out, and we're asking permission before we spend the money this time, but we need to spend money too, so we'd like permission, ratification, approval, something. And then we have 3 other firms that would like to be on our on-call services roster that submitted statement qualifications to us. We're suggesting adding all 3 to the roster.
All right. Jason, how much is a new dump truck these days?
More than this. Yes. A new sweeper truck, I just got a price for those, that's $350,000. I would think a dump truck might be a little less than that, but still a couple $100,000.
Tim, you've got some background there. What's a new dump truck these days?
A used dump truck that's in good condition, you're looking at 45 to 60,000.
I was gonna throw out 100 to 130,000 for new dump trucks that
Oh,
are
yeah.
somewhat, you know, with some limitations. I mean, you could spend a lot of money on dump trucks. But the reason I talk about this is just to put it in perspective that fix and repair for the city is not a bad policy.
Absolutely.
We're nursing along some fix and repair trucks. We're doing our best to do that.
Council questions for Jason?
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Council questions on council payable? Pretty straightforward run. Got everything we expect that time of month, so. All right, then I move we approve consent agenda items A, B, C, D, E, and F.
Second.
Motion by Kaiser, second by O'Meara. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We're on to action item 2 to consider request from Caldwell Lions Club to hold bi-monthly meetings at the trolley. And Ms. Cleminger is here. Would you mind coming up and addressing council a little bit on what your needs are? And I know you're working with other cities as well, correct?
Well, we're working, the Caldwell Lions are the parent club of the newly forming Middleton Lions Club. And we started this process about 3 years ago before COVID, and COVID just kind of shut us down. So we started up again earlier this year. We've got a great core group of people. We're looking forward to being active in this community. And we're even looking more forward to this club being a fully chartered club on their own as soon as they reach 20 members. Our request is that we're looking for a place to meet. I didn't even know this room was available, which it would serve us well either way. But we were looking at the trolley station, we've used that before. And we had asked for a waiver of the fee because they haven't had enough time to build any funds in the bank. They don't even have a bank account yet to pay the fees. And so that's what we were looking for, is just a place where we can have meet and hold meetings twice a month, the first and third Thursdays of the month. And I have also supplied a certificate of liability from Lions Club International to cover anything that would happen, which I can't foresee anything happening. I did bring with me Lynn Johnson. He's also from the Caldwell Lions Club. We're what they call the guiding lions, so we will be working with this club for the course of 2 years to make sure they get a strong footing and that they go forward and serve like we're supposed to do. So that's the plan moving forward. And so we were just asking for consideration on the waiver of the fee of the building or of a place to meet. And I say this room would be perfect. I didn't even know this might even be available. If it is, this would be perfect as well. And that's what we're looking for.
First and third Thursdays. Let's check scheduling first.
We have done that, Mayor, and they are available.
They are available. Okay, that's the first hurdle. Now, liability insurance, you've touched on that. You have your own.
Right, and I've already provided a copy to the
Yes, okay.
clerks.
Council?
How many members do you have now currently
Right
in
now,
Middleton?
signed up and paid dues, we have 6.
Okay.
We've got about 14 on our list. We've had some that haven't been able to get to meetings. Our next meeting will be next Thursday, the 27th.
Okay.
And so we're still in the process of growing, but the group we have, they're all business people, the ones that are signed up, they're active in the community already, and all really eager to do something to add to the city of Middleton.
I'm pretty sure there's some people here that don't know what the Lions Club does. Would you just give us a 2-minute description of what you're...
Well, Lions International is the largest service club in the world. They've got 1.4 million members, and I can't remember how, over 200 countries we serve. Our motto is we serve, we are in communities. We started off doing primarily vision projects, helping people that need eyeglasses or help with their vision, and they've expanded. And we go into more, each club kind of does their own thing, but they do for vision and sight, they do cancer for children, environmental causes. Lynn, you can help me.
What are some of the things Caldwell's Club is working on right now?
And Caldwell, I mean, each club, they have their thing, it's your club, your way. So if the community has a different need or wants to serve in a different way, they will. We provide scholarships to kids in high school, going on to college. It's open to whatever that club wants to do. And it's just, it's a great organization. The reason I joined is because the money that they raise from the community after their expenses goes back to the community. We pay dues to be a Lion to cover our administrative expenses, so we're not taking money that we earn from the public to pay for running our clubs.
All right.
And that's why I got involved, that's something I was really,
Do you have a feel for what the Lions in Middleton would focus on at this point, or is
Well,
it
they're
just too
already-
early?
We've been talking about, they were talking about joining the chamber. They want to be involved maybe with 4th of July activities. We were talking about a service project, doing a food drive for the food bank, putting out collection boxes for eyeglasses, used eyeglasses. We collect those. We have a eye bank in Boise that not only collects the eyeglasses, they regrade them and send them out on missions and other places where they can use glasses, but they also collect corneas for transplants. And we're one of the few independent eye banks left in the country.
All right.
So it's real active. So there's a lot of different things we do. They're not limited to just what other clubs do, but they can create their own things, what they want to do.
All right, thank you for that. Council discussion.
I like the idea. I'm happy you're here. I think Middleton could use you guys.
We're happy we're here.
All right, no other, then I move that we approve the request from the Caldwell Lions Club to hold bi-monthly meetings. Would be the first and third Thursday of the month at the trolley station and waive rental fees.
Second. Beat me to it.
Motion by Kaiser, second by Huggins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you very much, and good luck to the
Thank you
Lions.
so much.
All
Looking
right.
forward to serving the country.
All right. Item number 3 is to consider waiving building permit and inspection fees for PMPRD, that's a familiar organization, pump station at Hillside Park. And there's a Mr. Garner here today.
Yes, sir. So.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm here representing Greater Middleton Parks and Rec. We're just asking that, so we are working on Hillside, which is a city-owned property, but we have a lease through you guys. We're just asking that you guys waive the building fees for our pump house and the existing irrigation system that we're building.
Councilman Rivera, do you have any comments on this one?
Well, as you know, we've been working on your park site to make it usable space. Matt was stuck in a hole out there yesterday, trying to hook up pipes for irrigation system. Nasty groundwater levels. Anyway, things are coming along. We should hopefully have that irrigation system up and running the middle of the summer. It's a little difficult right at the moment, but we'll get through it. This just basically, we're asking you to waive the cost of the fees so that we can put it into something else, because quite frankly, if you were building it, you wouldn't charge yourself a fee for your own building.
Council's pretty common to not take from one taxing agency to another. With this, it'd be like us charging the school district.
Councilman Rivera, are you gonna vote on this one?
No, sir, I will recuse myself from this vote.
All right, probably appropriate, thank you.
All right, then I move we, any other comments, concerning questions? All right, I move we waive the building permit and inspection fees for the Greater Middleton Parks and Rec Department pump station at Hillside Park.
Second.
Motion by Kaiser, second by Huggins. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
With one recusal, that passes unanimously. And those are the agendized items. We're gonna move to public comment portion.
Greater Middleton Parks, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
There's a sign-in sheet. Does anybody need to sign in real quick? Okay, we have some public comment tonight. We'll start with Patty Crawford. If you'll put your name and address on, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Patty Crawford, and at the last council meeting,
And your address is,
I probably,
you'd rather
can
not?
I write it down?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'll write it down.
That'll be fine.
Okay. At the last council meeting, I had a question that I wanted to bring up, and I was told that I could not speak because I hadn't signed up. So this time I followed protocol, and I signed up to make a suggestion to the council.
And you still opposed, but not putting on your address.
We're gonna let it go. Don't worry about it.
As a constituent of Middleton, and a person who has voted for the members that are sitting here today, it's my assumption that you want to get input from us and you want to hear from us when we have comments to make for you. So my question to you is, how do you get input from me and from the other members of the community? When I asked Mayor Rule at the last meeting, I was told that I would need to contact you individually to discuss the issues or to make suggestions. And you and I know that that really doesn't make sense. I know that you're here to represent the community and you have an interest in what goes on in our community. Therefore, I'm going to make a recommendation to the council that you change the structure of the community meetings so that you get input at the beginning of the meeting rather than at the end of the meeting when you've already voted. I think if you would listen to there probably are no issues, but if there are issues, and if we could provide you information before you vote on any particular item, it may influence how you decide to vote. If there's a concern about the impact that it might have on the length of the meeting, Mayor Rule already said I have 3 minutes, and everybody else would probably have 3 minutes. So I respectfully submit to the council that the meeting structure be altered to consider input prior to the meeting so that you have you might know what our interests and our concerns are before you vote. And that is all that I have.
Okay, I'll comment first, then city council can fire up like crazy. There's a public hearing process where everybody is encouraged to testify at those. In the cities that have had this format, and it's not all that many years ago that Middleton tried this approach, on any given subject, now you've got 60 people taking minutes and exchange and time and names and records and address, and city council's sitting here till 1 or 2 in the morning instead of having a more disciplined approach where it's actually on the public to get in touch with the people that they choose and look at the agenda and queue them up before, so that it doesn't turn into a 5:30 to midnight or later process. So I'm not in favor of it, but city council can do whatever they want. They're the first 4 votes, so I just want to make sure my comments were clear and crisp and that I didn't mislead anybody on my stance. Council?
Mayor Rule.
Councilman O'Meara?
Patty, I appreciate you coming forward and addressing this subject. I would like to state that all of us are on the public websites. You can get our email address or our telephone contacts and talk to any one of us individually at any time you want to. Most of us will answer our phones pretty regularly. So, and I try to go through my emails daily. So if you have a question or concern and you want to reach us, I think we're pretty reachable. And we'll listen to any reasonable discussion that we can. As long as we're not huddled up into a quorum outside of council chambers, we can discuss just about anything one-on-one.
I don't think I particularly have an issue with shifting comments to the front, as long as we keep action item specific comments to that number. You know, if we're doing a development, you keep comments with that development. But on miscellaneous items, I don't think I have any issue with shifting it to the beginning.
The only question I have is, I have heard, we don't have it, but I have heard the term public comments for items not on the agenda, and does that matter? I just know that sometimes that is mentioned, and to be honest, I don't know why.
Our legal counsel probably needs to weigh in here.
I think that's the way that NAMP is. I know that's the way Caldwell is. And, Patty probably thinks that's weird that you limit comments to something that's not on the agenda. But I think it has to do with what Councilor Murray was saying, that there are certain things council does that requires a public hearing, and it requires that hearing to be opened and those comments to be recorded and associated specifically with that. The land use action is a primary example, but there are some others that would come up from time to time. But I think that's kind of the reason that it's there, that limitation. The other reason is you may have, and I think this is what the mayor alluded to, you may have some very controversial items on your agenda at times that don't require a hearing. Now, whether you want to hear from 60 people who are very concerned about whatever the issue happens to be at 3 minutes each is sort of up to the council, but that could happen, as opposed to those people reaching out to you, individually outside the context of the meeting. So, and then remember too, there are ex parte communication rules for anything that's quasi-judicial, and we've had some training on that. So it does get a little bit complicated if you're going to open forum for comments on anything at the beginning of the meeting.
I would use tonight's example of feral cats. Were any of you contacted besides Councilman Murray on this? And I guess you really weren't contacted, you just
I
observed
jumped in the
chatter.
fray.
Yeah. So, I think the process can work if we educate the public on, well, how do you do it? Look at the agenda, and get a hold of any of us, and we'll represent the public. Councilman Murray?
Is it possible under, I assume state law may or may not cover this, so if we do have something controversial and we do have 65 people sign up, can we put a limit and say, look, 10 of you choose a spokesperson so we can cut the time limit down? Or if 65 people sign up, do we have to hear from 65 people? Does that make sense?
The question does make sense, and unfortunately, it's the latter. Right? You can't parse through who you're going to hear from and who you aren't going to hear from. I have seen jurisdictions that will limit the number of people, so the first 5 people that sign up get to address it. But there's alternative ways to get that input. If you know you're looking at something very controversial, let's say that on the food truck one, you had a lot of people in your community who had strong opinions about how that should go. You can schedule a workshop, so you could schedule, and it might be, on an off Monday, or an off Wednesday, or it could be scheduled for before the council meeting. Your meetings start fairly early, so that might be tough. But if you have 45 minutes, right, and you just parse that time out to whomever's there to speak to it, you can, and that's not a decision. That workshop is specifically not an action item. It's just time to get input. And so if there is an issue of broad public concern that you're having to wrestle with, that's another way of getting that input, is inviting people to come to the workshop. And then it's cleaner once it gets onto the agenda as an action item, but you have had that input. So that's going to be a kind of an item by item issue.
Council President.
If we purge this further, we should probably queue it up on the agenda and have a
Discussion.
public hearing, or at least a council discussion, rather than attack it here at public comments.
Councilwoman Huggins had a comment.
Go ahead,
Well,
Claire.
I was just gonna say, if it's exactly the same public comment section we have now, and just move it to the top, which is what I thought I heard, I don't think there's anything magic about it being at the end or the beginning. So it would give people an opportunity to say what they're thinking about, if it's okay that they talk about that item on the agenda. So I don't have a problem with that basic idea. I thought I heard the conversation going into having public comment on each action item, and that I would say we'd think real hard. But just moving general public comment to the beginning, for me, that's, I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. So if we want to bring that back forward on the agenda, we can,
I
I'm
don't
open
think
to that.
that's a problem.
One more brief point. I think it would make it a much more friendly environment for citizens to come down and speak, because you never know when council is gonna end. You can take a rough guess based on the agenda, but you could end up sitting here for 3 hours just to get 3 minutes to speak. If we front load it, then you know roughly what time you're gonna, so you don't have to sit through the whole council meeting just to talk about feral cats. So,
Council, I don't have a problem with the timing of it, as long as it is general public comments, and it is limited. I mean, there are some rules there. If we're gonna have a public hearing, we can't front load the conversation that way. And so that's gonna take some training. In terms of each item, if there's an item when someone can't be there, they email me or call me. Same with everybody else. You get an email or a phone call. When I checked my emails today, I had 0. So, I mean, obviously, and that's hit or miss based on the topic. So, I don't mind moving it, but I agree with Councilwoman Huggins. I'd take a really hard look to stop at every point to have comment on every point that we do. So,
Next thing will happen is the public comments will be at the front, and then they'll be upset because they can't comment at the end after we've
made a decision.
made a decision. So, yeah, but I got no problem putting it in front if that's what you want. You want to try it for a month or two?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea, Mary Will, just to have an action item and discuss this again, and then make that move.
Noted. Okay, thank you very much. Next name is, oh, excuse me, Councilman
Just
Hudson.
really quick, my number, when Rob says no one called him, my number was listed incorrectly for a long, long time. I don't know who was getting my calls and listened to them. So,
So Mayor, as a matter of note, all council members' cell phone numbers are listed on the top of the utility bill, which each resident receives each month. So if your number is wrong, please let us know.
maybe.
Unless there's a specific reason you're doing that, Councilmember Hopkins.
Somebody in Cuba is really upset. All right, Mike Grafe.
Mike Grafe, 1889 Ridgeway, just a couple of quick deals. I'd like to thank the people that have been working on this, that petition for the liquor by the drink. We're close, I guess, but we still have to make it to the goal line. And anything, any of you guys, I know you can't do it as a city and whatever, I'm talking individually as on a personal basis. Any help that they can get would really be. There's been guys sitting out by the veterans deal there and people walking the neighborhoods and everything else. And they put in a lot of effort. It'd be a shame to not have it happen. And it's not a matter that's passing, it's a matter of getting it on the ballot. And it'd be a shame to have to wait another 2 years to even try and redo that process again. Just a couple of quick comments on feral cats. Feral in the dictionary, an animal in a wild state, especially after escape from captivity or domestication, resembling a wild animal. I've had personal problems with cats in my yard. I spend a lot of money on gardens every year, and I don't like my broccoli and cauliflower and kohlrabi's tasting like cat poop. And when I raised all my raised beds, they're a natural litter box. So what did I do? I invited the cats by making a litter box for them. So now what have I done? I put the raised beds, I bought cat mat that I put in between my plants. I also bought motion sensor lights that are solar powered. When them little puppies jump the fence and come in my yard, they got 6 bright spotlights on them. And they don't hang around very long. We don't have to kill them, we don't have to this, we don't have to that. But remember one thing, when you put food out, or do this colony thing you're talking about, you brought it up on the raccoons. You're gonna have raccoons, you're gonna have skunks, you're gonna have cats, you're gonna have disease because the skunks and raccoons are drastic carriers for disease. If you don't want feral cats coming around your deal, don't make a house for them. Don't make a place for them to live. Don't feed them. You don't have to shoot them, you don't have to do any of that stuff, just don't feed them. Don't put water out for them. Leave them alone and they'll go somewhere else. Maybe you're just moving the problem to somebody else, but it ain't my problem anymore as far as my garden goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Ooh, right on time.
Sandra.
Sandy.
Sandy. Sandy, come on up and name and address and we'll give you 3 minutes.
Sandy Sinclair, 1871 Ridgeway, Middleton, Idaho, 83644. It's all written down. I'm here to defend the cats. Mike's problem is with domesticated cats in our neighborhood, and I agree. People do not manage their animals properly. But I'm here to defend those that have been abandoned, and they're left open to breed and breed and breed. I can be your source, if you would like. The Humane Society gives 4 operations per person who brings a feral or an abandoned cat in for free. That's just one entity. There's SNPs, there's several other places that they get donations. There's several other rescue places.
I'm aware of this only because my heart went out for 3 cats that are in a lot, not owned, well, it's owned by somebody, but it's sitting in the corner. No one has built on it, nothing. It was built eventually. I only was feeding them until I can trap them and get them spayed. I don't want to just release, but there's animals that have to be done that way too, because they're untamable. They've gone through the whole process of just growing up wild. Anyway, I'm open, take my name, phone number. We can even have a little blurb on the city deal, what to do, who to contact. They can contact me, I can at least direct, so we don't have inhumane treatment. In my neighborhood, there's people who like to just take a cat, a domesticated cat, because it was in their yard, trap it, and go jump it somewhere. That poor cat then becomes an abandoned feral. And it's, I know it's way over what I could possibly do as one person. But there's a lot of people. The little houses that you've talked about, the styrofoam homes, that's to protect the poor animals during the winter that we have here. I don't know how bad the situation is here. I'm from an area in Southern California. It wasn't that bad. But in the rural areas, it seems that, when I moved here, I was appalled at the treatment of animals. It's like, stay neutered, what? So, anyway, is there any questions you can ask me right now and I can answer? Or am I taking up time?
No. Well, you're welcome to the time, first of all, and it's on a good subject, and you're providing solutions. I like people who bring solutions instead of
That's why I
problems.
came.
So, we're gonna bring forward some language, and we've got your number. We're certainly gonna invite you back at that time, because it looks like you're gonna be part of the solution, and that's super.
Well,
So-
I can find other people that live in our community that can aid and assist as well. I'm unable to, but I have neighbors that are great at it.
Part
We
of the
just
solution
happened
again.
to trap
Really appreciate it.
and spade
So
2 cats right now.
maybe next council, maybe the one after, you're gonna get a call and be
All right,
invited
so
in,
you
okay?
call me, you have a name, phone number?
Yes, we do. Thank you very
And
much.
my email address?
Don't have your email address here, so if you'd pencil that in when we wrap up, and it'll be just a minute.
Okay.
We'd like that, we need Patty's address as well. All right,
Mayor Rule,
Councilman Huggins.
I just want to clarify, you're okay if I contact you directly? This
Absolutely.
information, okay. Email, I'd like,
Just, don't call me probably before 10.
that's all right.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
I don't go to bed at
Thank you.
7.
What's your last name again?
Sinclair. like
Sinclair.
the
Okay, got
gas
it.
company.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right. Let's see. Council comments? Councilman O'Meara?
Mayor Earl, just a quick update on your Stonehaven Park site. Things are progressing already. We've got a youth volunteer group that will be out there this evening from 6:45 till about 9, trying to help clean up the lot. It has been burned off with permission from the fire department, so that got rid of the tall poisonous weeds. So Parks and Rec will be spraying and maintaining the weeds through the season, and we're currently working on a new access ramp into that site so that the public can utilize it. So hopefully by the end of the summer, we've got something growing at least for a
Excellent.
dog
A
park.
win-win, thanks to Greater Parks. Thank you very much. Anything else? I would just end with Becky Crofts and I attended the Idaho Department of Commerce Rural Success Summit the past 2 days. And Middleton was actually featured. We were asked to present the Riverwalk concept, and we received a lot of positive feedback on what Middleton's doing to involve the public in the future of the Middleton walkability and river flow. Nothing but grand reviews for council's work in that area. So, anything to add, Becky? Okay, it's 6:43. There's a bunch of students that need signatures. We're going to end city council, and kids, you can come up and get your signatures. Thank you all for attending.